Darkness rippled across the void, as though the galaxy itself was holding its breath. On the bridge of the Kothari Dominion flagship, Grand Strategist Virex stood before the panoramic view of space. His golden carapace reflected the cold glow of the starfield. All was silent except for the low hum of the warship's reactor. This sector, the Dead Spiral, was forbidden territory, a region of space where myths whispered of a vanished species called humans. Virex had never believed the stories. Humans were said to be monsters from an earlier age, a primitive species that dared defy the great empires of the galaxy before vanishing into extinction millennia ago. To the Kothari, they were nothing more than a cautionary tale, used to frighten hatchlings into obedience. And yet here he was, leading 3,000 warships into the heart of human legend. "This region is empty," rasped his first officer, Krex. "Long-range scans detect only ruins. Debris fields. Ghost signals. The myths are just that, myths." Virex's mandibles twitched. "Perhaps," he said softly. "But explain the energy readings that brought us here. Something is awake in this sector. Something powerful." The bridge fell silent. Virex's fleet had been chasing rumors for months, rogue pirate factions annihilated overnight, colonies vanishing without a distress signal, entire trade convoys reduced to drifting wreckage. No one had seen the attackers, only the aftermath, clean strikes, precise, surgical destruction. It was too efficient to be pirates. Too quiet to be any rival empire. Something in Virex's instincts told him the galaxy had missed a predator. The Kothari Dominion fleet advanced into the Dead Spiral, their formation a gleaming wall of warships. Wreckage floated in the starlight, the skeletal frames of unknown vessels, blackened stations, shattered moons. The silence was oppressive, as though the very stars were mourning something lost. "This is not natural," whispered Krex. Virex felt it too. He had fought a dozen wars across as many systems, but this was different. Every ruin they passed looked deliberate. Precise. Not like the chaotic debris of battle, but like executions. Then came the signal. It hit their comms like a knife through the void, a single pulse on an encrypted frequency no one had used for 10,000 years. The bridge lights dimmed as ancient code scrolled across their displays. "What is that?" Krex hissed. Virex stared at the transmission. The language was archaic, but he knew enough history to recognize it. "It's human," he said quietly. The bridge crew froze. "Humans are extinct," someone whispered. "Are they?" Virex asked. The pulse came again, louder this time, clearer, like a heartbeat in the dark. Then their sensors flared with proximity warnings. Something massive was emerging from the edge of the system. The first ship appeared like a phantom. It slid out of the shadows of a dead moon, its surface obsidian black, absorbing starlight. Its silhouette was like nothing in Virex's database, long, brutal, predatory. This was no relic, no derelict. Its engines burned with terrifying power as it locked onto the Kothari fleet. "Identify it." Virex barked. "Unknown configuration. Unknown energy signature." But, the sensor officer's voice broke. "It's broadcasting an ancient human war code." Then another ship appeared. And another. And another. One by one, they emerged, titanic vessels that dwarfed even the Dominion's largest dreadnoughts. Their hulls bore no insignia, no empire markings, only a single emblem, etched in glowing white, a stylized blue and green sphere. "Impossible," Krex breathed. The humans had returned. The first human ship fired. It wasn't a warning shot. It wasn't a declaration of intent. It was annihilation. A single streak of light lanced across the void and a Kothari cruiser ceased to exist, vaporized before its shields even registered the hit. Shockwaves rippled through the Dominion formation. Alarms screamed. Defensive posture. Virex roared. But the human battleships didn't stop. Their assault was silent, methodical, merciless. Cathari warships exploded one after another, their remains scattering like sparks in the night. The Dominion's mighty fleet, built to subjugate entire worlds, was being shredded with horrifying precision. And then, through the chaos, through the screams of his dying fleet, Virex heard it. A voice. Not over comms. Not through translation programs. It was as if the void itself was speaking. This is Terran command. You have trespassed into human space. Leave, or you will not leave at all. The voice was calm. Cold. Final. Virex felt the weight of history press down on him. The myths had been true. The monsters from the old stories were real, and they were not pleased. His entire body went rigid as he watched another Dominion battleship vanish under human fire. Order the retreat, he said finally. His voice was barely a whisper. But deep inside, he knew it was too late. The humans had returned to the galaxy. And they were not hiding anymore. The retreat order spread like wildfire through the Dominion fleet, but fear moved faster than commands. Warships broke formation, drives flaring as they turned to escape the ambush. The once proud Cathari armada dissolved into chaos, no longer a wall of steel but a scattering of desperate prey. Grand Strategist Virex stood motionless on the command deck, mandibles tight, watching the tactical map bleed red. The human ships were not chasing them recklessly. They advanced in perfect coordination, closing off escape routes like hunters herding their quarry. Strategist, we must jump to slip space now. Krex hissed, panic sharp in his voice. If we do, they will track us, Virex said flatly. They are not merely pursuing us, they are studying us. The bridge crew fell silent. The thought was worse than death. On the main display, a Dominion destroyer tried to break through the human cordon, its engines burning hotter than safety limits, shields flaring bright. It didn't make it. A single human shot found it mid-flight, and the destroyer folded in on itself, gone in an instant. The humans didn't waste ammunition. Every shot was a kill shot. Virex forced himself to breathe slowly. Fear was useless now. The fleet needed leadership, not terror. Signal the surviving ships, he ordered. Regroup on Vector 4. We are leaving this system, now. Space tore open as the Dominion slipspace drives engaged. One by one, the surviving warships vanished into faster-than-light tunnels, fleeing like insects into the dark. But even as they escaped, Virex felt no relief. They let us go, he murmured, staring at the empty starfield where the human battleship still loomed, unmoving, their engines glowing like silent threats. Krex turned to him, disbelief in his compound eyes. They had us surrounded. They could have finished us. Yes, Virex said, his tone grim. And that should terrify you more than if they had. The Dominion fleet emerged from slipspace battered, scattered, and humiliated. Of the 3,000 warships that had entered the dead spiral, less than 2,000 remained. But the damage was more than just physical. Messages flooded the fleet channels, reports of crews in shock, captains unable to restore discipline, entire ships broadcasting panicked religious chants. The myth of human extinction had been the foundation of galactic history. The Dominion taught that humanity had been wiped out as an example to all lesser species who dared defy the galactic order. And now that myth had been shattered. The Cathari had survived, barely, but the galaxy would know. The emergency summit was called within hours. On the crystalline world of Caltheros Prime, representatives of half a dozen empires gathered. The chamber buzzed with fear and disbelief. This is impossible, spat the Krail Hierophant, his voice a series of guttural clicks. The Terrans were purged 10 millennia ago. This is a trick, a false flag attack meant to destabilize the region. Virex stood before them, scarred armor still scorched from the battle. I have seen them with my own eyes, he said, his voice carrying across the chamber. These were not pirates. Not scavengers. These were Terran warships. Modern. Deadly. And they annihilated a third of my fleet before allowing us to escape. The room erupted in alarmed chatter. Allowed you? Hissed the Vesh Conclave's ambassador. Virex nodded slowly. Yes. I believe their message was deliberate, they are not hiding. They are warning us. The council chamber went silent at that. Across the galaxy, news of the encounter spread faster than any official attempt to contain it. Encrypted transmissions leaked into public channels. Civilian populations panicked. Entire starports were flooded with refugees trying to flee the border sectors near the dead spiral. Merchants raised prices on food and weapons. And somewhere, in the shadows of forgotten stations and derelict moons, a name began to be whispered again, a name that had not been spoken aloud for thousands of years. Humans. They were supposed to be extinct. Instead, they had returned as executioners. Virex stood alone in the observation tower on Caltheros Prime, staring out over the glowing city below. The stars above seemed to watch him in silence, as though amused. Why now? He muttered. Why after all this time? He had spent his entire life believing in the Dominion's supremacy, in the inevitability of Kothari rule over lesser species. Now, he was forced to confront the possibility that the galaxy had been living a lie, that the greatest enemy the galaxy had ever faced had never been defeated, merely waiting. And if they had waited 10,000 years, what were they preparing for? Back in the dead spiral, the human fleet did not pursue. Instead, they gathered. Thousands of signals pulsed in the void, summoning ships from hidden docks, activating defense grids buried in dead worlds. From the wreckage of forgotten stations, drones began to rebuild ancient fortresses. And at the heart of it all, a single massive supercarrier, a ship so vast it could eclipse a moon, powered up for the first time in millennia. Its name burned across its hull in a language no living alien could read. TSS Resolute. Inside, a human commander watched the Dominion retreat report scroll across her holoscreen. Contact made, she said quietly. The galaxy knows we're back. Another officer saluted sharply. Do we proceed with Operation Dawn? The commander's eyes were cold as the void. Yes, she said. Wake the others. It's time they all remembered what humanity is capable of. Outside, the Terran fleet formed up, a wall of black steel bristling with weapons, engines glowing like a line of fire against the night. The galaxy had thought them dead. Now they were awake. And they were preparing for war. The galaxy mobilized. From the glittering core worlds to the dust-choked frontier colonies, fleets were raised, alliances forged, ancient rivalries buried under the shadow of a greater threat. The return of humanity had shaken the balance of power like a supernova. On Caltheros Prime, Grand Strategist Virex presided over the largest war council in living memory. Holographic projections of fleets from a dozen empires hung above the council table, a display of combined firepower that could shatter entire star systems. This is not a war we can afford to lose, Virex told them. His mandibles clicked in grim determination. If humanity is allowed to expand beyond the dead spiral, they will not stop. They will not negotiate. They will consume us all. They have not declared war, the Vesh Conclave's representative countered, her scales glinting under the chamber lights. They don't have to, Virex said coldly. They sent a message. They fired first. They let us go so we could warn you. We are the declaration of war. The room fell silent. The decision was made. The combined fleet would march into the dead spiral. When the Armada arrived, it was a sight worthy of legend, 10,000 warships of every class, from nimble corvettes to Leviathan dreadnoughts. The stars themselves seemed to vanish under their sheer numbers. But the dead spiral was no longer silent. Humanity had fortified it. Sensor pings revealed defense grids strung like spiderwebs across entire systems. Orbital cannons turned slowly, tracking the invaders. Automated platforms bristled with warheads. And then the humans came. They emerged from the shadows of ruined moons, from the maws of asteroid bases, from hyperspace lanes that had been sealed for millennia. The Terran fleet was vast, not as numerous as the Coalition, but larger than anything any single empire had ever fielded. At their center loomed the Resolute, a supercarrier so massive it cast a planetary shadow. The two forces faced one another across the void, the silence before the storm stretching unbearably. Then, on every channel, a single voice spoke. "This is Terran Command. You are trespassing in human territory. This is your final warning." Virex stood on his bridge, every nerve screaming at him to order a retreat. But there was no retreat. "Not now." "Fire," he said. The galaxy roared. The battle that followed was unlike anything the stars had seen in 10,000 years. Coalition fleets unleashed everything they had: plasma storms, singularity missiles, graviton warheads, enough firepower to erase continents. Human shields flared, bent, but did not break. Then the humans answered. Their weapons struck with surgical precision, entire cruisers torn apart with single shots. Terran rail slugs tore through dreadnought armor as though it were paper. Their ships moved with impossible coordination, as if every pilot shared a single mind. But the Coalition did not falter. Their numbers were overwhelming, their firepower immense. Ship after ship fell on both sides, filling the void with burning wreckage. And then the Resolute fired its main weapon. The supercarrier's spinal cannon unleashed a beam of white light that cut through the battlefield like a god's judgment. Entire squadrons of Coalition ships were vaporized in a single sweep. Shockwaves rippled through the armada, not from the blast, but from sheer fear. Virex gripped the edge of his command console. "We are not fighting a lost species," he muttered. "We are fighting something older, stronger, something that waited for us to grow arrogant before striking." Hours passed. The battle stretched on, but the outcome became clear. The Coalition lines faltered, broke, collapsed. In the final moments, Virex sent a single encrypted message to the surviving Coalition commanders. "Withdraw. All of you. This war is lost." One by one, the Coalition fleets disengaged. They left behind thousands of burning hulks, millions of dead. And still, the humans did not pursue. They let the survivors go, again. Weeks later, Virex stood once more on Caltheros Prime, staring into the night sky. The Council had been dissolved. The great powers were reeling, their economies shattered, their fleets broken. But the galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. Everyone was waiting for humanity's next move. Then a broadcast came, not encrypted, not hidden. Every world, every station, every ship in the galaxy received it simultaneously. A human stood before them, wearing a uniform of black and silver. Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. "We are humanity," she said. "You were told we were extinct. You were told we were weak. You were told we were gone. You were wrong. We do not seek your worlds. We do not seek your surrender. But know this, the age of silence is over. If you enter our space again, there will be no warnings. No mercy. Only history, written in fire." The broadcast ended. The galaxy held its breath. And slowly, one by one, the great powers began to move their fleets away from human borders. Because they had seen what awaited them in the dark. Because they had learned the truth. Humanity was not a legend. Humanity was the storm. And the storm had only just begun.